What's up, everybody, and especially my beautiful, powerful patients? This is the Mental Chiropractor. I am Tezra, and I'm here to help you realign your mind. And y'all, I'm not going to, first of all, I am about to get ready to go to bed, but I was watching the Netflix documentary of Shaman Durek and his new wife and how their relationship came to be. So that's why I'm here right now. But I also had to be very transparent and honest and say there is a very deep level of annoyance that I am in right now because I did a whole other video. Let me make sure this is recording. And I could have sworn that it was recording and that it wasn't. And so, I'm a brand new YouTuber. And so I was like, universe, okay, so what are you trying to tell me? Am I not supposed to be doing this? Because I did a whole video about this and I'm searching everywhere and I cannot find it. So I'm like, okay. And then there was something that was like, Tessa, you got to be resilient. Like, just do it again. Just do it again. And I'm not going to take off my baker's hat, as my husband calls it, because, I just retwisted my hair. But in a nutshell, so during this, I was talking about Shaman Durek and how he may just be a fraud. And I'm going to get into the reason why I think he's a fraud. But during that, my tongue started itching. Just out of nowhere, my tongue started itching. So I looked up, why might my tongue be itching? And let me see what is the spiritual meaning of an itchy tongue. So an itchy tongue can symbolize a spiritual warning that something is amiss, because I started to talk about Shaman Durek and how he may just be a fraud from what I just saw in this Netflix documentary. And then it said, or it may represent a strong urge to speak ill of others. And I do not mean to speak ill of Shaman Durek, but I do mean to call him out on him being a charlatan as a shaman from what I saw just a half hour, 45 minutes ago in the documentary. A concept known as an itchy tongue in Christianity. Some interpretations suggest it signifies a period of giving or receiving, or that God might be preparing you to enter new spiritual territory. And then Christian and Catholic interpretations of an itchy tongue. And Christian and early Catholic traditions, this phrase refers to a strong, almost uncontrollable urge to speak negatively about others, often through gossip or slander. That's not the case here. And general spiritual meanings, an itchy tongue can be a signal that your spiritual awareness is being alerted to something that is not right in your environment or within yourself. And a spiritual transition, an itchy tongue can also indicate that a new spiritual journey or phase of your life is about to begin, possibly involving moving into new spiritual territory. So that spiritual territory has come up twice. So when it comes to Shaman Durek, and many of you may not know who he is, and some of you may. I came to know him during COVID. And, I'm gullible, so I was like, okay, cool. It's a shaman. It happens to be a melanated shaman. Okay, great. Very charismatic. He had a lot of personality and, somewhat flamboyant. So you would think that, he has a lot of feminine energy. So, I don't know. I didn't care about his sexual orientation. But here's the kicker. So I'm watching on Netflix a documentary, and he is married now. Now they're married, but this documentary was chronicling how they met and how they got to the marriage state, right? How they arrived at marriage. So his wife is a Norway princess. She's part of the royal family in Norway. And in Norway, there's not many melanated people. But here's the thing. A shaman is somebody who is spiritually evolved, who is spiritually enlightened, and who lives outside the constructs of who lives outside of man-made constructs, no matter what that is, right? Doctrine, denominations, the man-made construct of race, which is not really a real thing. So you would think that I'm going to speak for myself. I would think that a shaman is somebody who is evolved beyond those confines, right? And so in the U.S., so Shaman Durek's lineage, his father is Haitian, African Haitian, and his mother is East Indian, what did they say? East Indian Norwegian. I think I can bring it up. I think I still have it. Let me see. Let me type it in real quick. Okay, so he was born. He was raised in Sacramento, California. That's where I think him and his wife live now. And his parents, no, not that. Sorry. Okay, so his mother comes from a powerful line of shamans of various origins: African, Haitian, Blackfoot, and Norwegian. So he does have some Norwegian connects. Okay, so great. Okay, fine. So he has some sort of connection to Norway. All right, that's beautiful. So the royal family, which he is about to marry into, they don't have very many contacts or relations with melanated people. But just because they don't does not make them by default racist. They just don't have that in their nucleus because it's not a lot of melanated people in Norway. And this is something that Black people have to understand, that just because a person may not be familiar with you does not mean that they are by default racist, okay? So for Shaman, what he did was he introduced racism into the royal family of Norway. And this is how he did it. Stop, y'all. Stop. For those who are trying to say that, oh, they were already that way, or oh, there's no way that they couldn't know, stop. Okay, this is not where we're taking this conversation. All right. Now, if you want to take the conversation in that direction, you could do it at another channel, but not this channel, and not for these purposes right now. So Shaman Durek introduced the narrative of racism, right? Because in his own insecurity, one, about just being a person who lives in the U.S. and being introduced into a royal family of Norway, like just being an American citizen and being introduced or joined to a royal family in and of itself is enough to be paranoid about, because obviously we have no idea of their cultural practices or their standards. So, there's a huge learning curve, right? From the language to the posture, to the manners, to the rituals, the activities, to how you're supposed to sit, all of that. As an American, we have no idea of what that is. I mean, obviously he could have done some sort of research, or also could have gotten a coach. I mean, he could have gotten that. But anyway, okay, so he didn't. Okay, so now he's going into this royal family, being married into this royal family where he is a complete eight ball because he knows nothing about the culture. Okay, given that, right? But then he also brought in his paranoia about his skin. And what his claim was is that he was treated differently because of his skin. So you couldn't have just been treated differently just because, one, you look very different from the locals there, and two, because people know that you're from the United States. So yeah, they may treat you differently, but just because it's a melanated person automatically means that it is because of the melanin level in my skin. That's off the bat automatic. That's what that means. Okay. But as a shaman, I would think that you live at a more enlightened level. I would think that you, Shaman Durek, will live at a more evolved spiritual level to where you are aware that You are not your physical body. And so it's either you put your spirituality within the confines of man-made constructs, or you put your man-made constructs in the realm of your spirituality. Now, here's the difference. When you put, and listen for the people in the back, listen very closely. When you put your spirituality or your spiritual practices or your religious beliefs within the confines of the man-made constructs, you stifle your spiritual growth and your spiritual journey. It is stifled because you are working within the man-made construct. When you place, on the antithetically speaking, when you place the man-made constructs within the realm of spirituality, then the man-made construct cannot do anything but dissolve. You know that it exists, but it cannot be a part of your life, because the spiritual realm is the place which you have placed it, and that is rightful place within the spiritual realm. I hope that makes sense. So the spiritual realm governs the man-made constructs, which then frees you into your spiritual liberation. And this is where you're in tune with who you really are, who you truly are. This is when you tap into your infinite nature, your infinite power. And so that is where I would think that Shaman Durek that's the level that he's on. No. So this is what happened. So he gets into this whole conversation about race, the man-made construct of race. And he's bringing that conversation over to the royals in Norway. There was that famous interview that I did not see with Oprah Winfrey and Meghan Markle, Prince Harry's wife, where they talked about, her being biracial and how that was received by the royal family. And she said that because she was biracial, that she did receive treatment of racism because of her background. Okay. Somehow, the king of Norway caught wind of this interview. And him being self-aware, he went back to Shaman Durek and said, I'm just recapping here. I was made aware of this interview with Meghan and with Oprah, and how Meghan's experience was with the royal family and being introduced and integrated into the royal family. And I just want to make sure that you feel that way about us. The king had enough self-awareness and concern and regard to check in on his soon-to-be son-in-law and said, did you feel this way about us? Now, here is a golden opportunity that I feel that Shaman Durek missed, that he could have changed the trajectory, that he could have elevated the conversation, that he could have changed the narrative and the paradigm as a spiritual being, and he did not. He missed it, y'all. He missed it. So instead of saying, as an evolved person, I realize that I am not my body, and I realize that I am not bound to the melanin level in my skin. Although I do know that that construct and that paradigm does exist in the country where I am from. So I do thank you for being sensitive to that condition and to that narrative that happens in the United States of America. However, as a spiritual evolved being, I do not want to bring that paradigm here. So as I thank you for being sensitive to ask me about that, no, I do not. Because as a spiritual being, I realize that we are all one. And I feel comfortable in my skin around the royal family. I may not feel comfortable with the practices, but I do feel comfortable in my skin, because really and truly, the only thing that Shaman Durek was doing was projecting his own insecurities about the melanin level in his skin onto the royals. That's the only thing that he was doing. So the fact that he misses golden opportunity to change the narrative, to change the paradigm, I'm like, this is a fraud. This is a fraud. Because how can anybody who claims to be a shaman, what shaman do you know lives within the confines of any man-made construct? What shaman do you know except for if you are a starlet, a Hollywood starlet shaman? And therefore, that's, I can no longer take his shamanic stature or position seriously. Because anybody who is of that stature, that spiritual stature, I'm not even close to being a shaman. And in my own spiritual journey, and when I had my own spiritual awakening, I instantly knew that my skin had nothing to do with anything. And that I have the power to make it so or to make it not so. So if a person was intending to project racism my way, the only way that could be true is if I agree to it. If I don't agree to it, then it has to stay with that person. I don't shit what that person eats. So that way the person looks at me and tries to treat me, I don't have to own it myself, because I'm the only one that can make it true. Because the power lies with me, and I'm very well aware of that. So the fact that Shaman Durek did not see this as a golden opportunity to change things for the world, to start to change the conversation for the world and start to pivot in a different direction, I'm like, no, this guy couldn't be genuine. Because he's very much operating from a default programmed mind of the colonials to distill everything down to the melanin level in your skin and make your position in society based upon that. Or now here's the thing. So he was thinking that the royal family, and make your position in society based upon that. But he was thinking that the royal family was treating him differently because of the melanin level in his skin. No, they were treating him differently because they're stoic people. They're not going to show emotions. They're not going to be like, oh, welcome to the family. Come on, Ned. Come, give me a hug. They're not that. They're not going to be Minnesota nice and not going to demonstrate Southern hospitality. The fakery. They're not doing that. We do that here in the U.S. They are a family of stoicism. So just because they weren't all warm and fuzzy to you doesn't mean that they weren't that way because you happen to be melanated. So there it is, folks. I got it out. Shaman Durek, I think, is a fraud. I'm going to say it right out, because any person who is of a spiritual stature, as he claims to be, knows that his skin has nothing to do with his life as he wants to live it unless he allows it so. And the fact that he allowed it so, questions. It's questionable. So with that, I hear my husband coming through the door, and he's laughing at me because I got my baker's hat on. So I'm going to sign off. And remember, y'all, you're tuned in, tapped in, but never trapped in. Do never, ever be trapped into the lies and the deceptions and the and the bamboozlement that the establishment of those behind the curtains want you to live your life according to. Okay, so just remember, stay empowered, be empowered, and I'm going to take me and my baker's hat off to Betty. Bye. Until next time, we will see you later.